Hi students, this is Mrs. Mignell, and I wanted to give you instructions on how to turn your downdraft for Essay 1, the rhetorical analysis, into an updraft, which is due for tomorrow. So the first thing, just real quick review of the writing process that I'm teaching you in English 1A. The first thing is that you're doing a downdraft, which you have already done, and this downdraft is done in any way to get your thoughts down on the paper in order to arrive at a point that you have to make. The F draft, which we're going to focus on in this particular video, is when you have your point that you want to make and you consider an audience outside of your head and how to present your point to them with reasons and evidence so that they would be interested in it. Then we will go through, we'll actually do a workshop where your peers comment, and then you use those comments in order to revise your essay to better address the needs of your audience. And then there's actually I have you edit your essay where you specifically look at your surface errors in it and remove as many as you possibly can. So like I said, the downdraft you've already done. The successful downdraft led to your winding up with a point to make about the text that you are going to rhetorically analyze. And you do it in any way that works for you. And as you're writing, you keep in mind you trying to say, what's my point? Why am I making it? Why is it important? Why would someone be interested in listening to me? Until you have it. So in the updraft part of the writing process, you really have to consider who your reader is. You need this to be able to restructure your downdraft to present your point up front, and then to present it and guide your audience through your reasoning with the evidence in order to have them believe your point, to find it interesting, and to motivate them either to do something after having read it. So the question that you need to ask is, who is your audience? And what do you know about them? And what would interest them? And how would you persuade them? So you do need to consider these things as part of your restructuring your essay and coming up with an outline pretty much in order to write this updraft. So in all of my essays for the longest time that I can remember, my updraft audience was always my mom, because she was even more difficult to please than any of my professors. And there's my mom. There's a picture of her. That's actually a very famous pose for the 1930s. There was a movie called It Happened One Night, starring Claudette Colbert and Clark Gable, where they do this famous hitchhiking scene, and my mom and her friend posed that way. I'm pretty sure that this was in the 30s. She was a part of the Greatest Generation. She did leave school in 9th grade due to a mean algebra teacher, but she did continue to be a lifelong learner. Leaving school did not stop her from learning. She encouraged me to write. She saw that I wrote as a child, and she encouraged me to keep writing. She sent me off to college, encouraged me to go, and she encouraged me to earn a college degree even when I had to pursue it class by class. But she also called a fool a fool. So you have to think, who is your audience? My mom is my audience, but who will be your updraft audience? Here's another picture of my mom standing in front of a really cool car. So when I would restructure my downdraft, I would hear her talking to me, and she would be saying such things as, and she was critical. Why did you say that? So why did you use that word? Do you only want to communicate with only 3 people in the world? Because I used big words. That sentence doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. What are you trying to mean? And then she would say, I'm not interested, which I think today would translate into the text acronym INI. I'm not interested. And then you expect me to care about this? Why? And then eventually, as I kept on writing and kept on drafting, um, I could hear her say, yes, that's the way it is. And then, okay, I'm interested, keep going. And then finally, exactly. So, uh, coming from a military background, my mom would have made an excellent drill instructor. She was tough. She made me consider my reader more, which made me a better writer. So you really do need to think about who you are writing to. So I would start my drafts, Dear Mom. And then I explained to her the point I want to make is that while fashionista Elle Woods, the movie's heroine, acceptance into Harvard University Law School is ridiculous, her experience in Harvard law classroom serves as a warning to would-be lawyers as well as a dare. And I did that video on the rhetorical analysis last week, and my mind has continued to think about, well, what is the point that it's trying to make? What point can I make about this movie and what that scene actually means? And this is what my mind settled on. So part of it is if you want to be a lawyer, you have to be prepared in your law classes. And if Elle Woods can become a lawyer, I dare you to become one too. So now the question is now the next part is, what are my reasons that support my thesis and what evidence can I use to support it? And another crucial question is why is my important and why would my reader be interested, or how can I cause my reader to be interested? So again, I'm talking to my mom. So mom, this is how I'll organize it. And I just kind of walk her through it. So my introduction, and I leave my introduction to the end. I usually always state what I have to do in the essay, going through the instructions to make sure that I meet the requirements. So I don't spend the time wasting my time on some kind of an introduction now. I know my thesis. My thesis is, while Elle Woods' acceptance into Harvard University is not that logical, the character's experience in Harvard law classroom serves as a warning to would-be lawyers as well as a dare. So I know that that's my thesis. My first reason is that law school requires student skills that go beyond looking good and earnest intentions. And I thought about that scene that I had analyzed, the Socratic method, where she was in the class and Dr. Stromwell picked on her and she was not prepared and conferred with Vivian Kensington to say, may I excuse her from the class? And she said, I concur. And so Elle Woods was ousted out of the class because she was not prepared. So I felt that that was a logical setting in the classroom, especially for a Harvard law classroom. And it was very emotional because we didn't want our Elle Woods treated that way. And then reason two, law school requires the ability to handle rejection. In this movie, I absolutely love the Playboy bunny scene. I found it very embarrassing that Vivian Kensington would invite her to the party, but punk her and tell her to come in a costume. Elle Woods comes as a Playboy bunny. She perfectly plays it off too. When she walks in and no one's in a costume, I don't know. I would have run out at that moment when no one else was in a costume. But I had to hand it to Elle Woods. She stayed her ground and she actually made fun of Vivian Kensington and went around in the party and actually talked to people. And then she used this rejection because her boyfriend tells her that she's not smart enough in that scene, or ex-boyfriend. And she goes out and she gets the computer, and this is the turning point for her in law school. So then reason three is law school requires asking challenging questions. Another one of my favorite scenes is when she's in the class with Dr. Callahan and they're discussing the parental rights of a sperm donor with a child that was born. And her ex-boyfriend says that the child wouldn't exist without the male. But Elle Woods brings up the part, why this sperm? I thought that was an excellent analysis of critically thinking about why didn't he pursue every situation that would have resulted in a child? Why only this one? And that was something that a lawyer would do. So I found in that particular one, it's very logical and actually made her very credible as a law student. So now I have to think about how to explain these reasons with evidence that equals a warning and a dare. I haven't gotten to that part yet, but this is an updraft, so I think I'll be safe with this amount. Um, so now I'll use that outline to write my draft, thinking about my reader, who is now not just my mother, but my classmates. And I tuck my mother to the door, and in addition to listen to what my classmates say, I'll also keep an eye on what my mom is looking at and paying attention to as well. So this is what we did, right? We really focused on this matter of the updraft. I hope that this has provided you a way to write your updraft for Essay 1 on the rhetorical analysis. I don't know if I'll have the time to actually produce a real draft of it. I have included a number of student essay examples on finished essays for you to look at. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope this helps. Bye-bye.